am whirling. I'm waiting to see. Hello, I am live. My first live solo. Welcome to Open Minds Special. I have an amazing guest tonight, Frank Jacob. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing, Gloria?
I'm doing fine, Frank. Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Saw my cat's butt too. It was just in the
I
picture.
saw that, yeah. Well, my cats.
I told you I can't predict them. You know, they have gutter
Yeah,
mouths.
but they're not cussing yet, are they? We haven't.
No, not yet. No.
No. My cat's just woke up, so no doubt he'll try and come over. But let's not digress to the cat world. So, Frank, welcome to the show. You've been on my Inception podcast. It was an amazing show, an amazing information. And obviously that's why I've asked you to come on to Open Minds Chat Show. So for anyone out there who possibly is not aware of you, give us a quick bio of who you are and what you do.
Most people will probably know me from a film that we released about 5 years ago now. Yeah, 5 years ago, called Packing for Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in the, you know, I think in your kind of world, sort of the UFO world and the paranormal world, although I did, work also with Tanya Maidenford, who's my production partner, on another one before that called Solar Revolution, which I think that also made some waves in the consciousness field, because it's talking about exactly what's happening right now. And we released that one even before we released Packing for Mars. So actually, yeah, it's funny. And another film that we did together with Craig Campobasso, who was, I think, one of your guests recently, was a short film that won the Burbank Film Festival called Stranger at the Pentagon, which was only a short film of a longer, potentially, you know, we're obviously hoping to produce the full-length version of that at some point in the future together.
Yeah.
And, you know, since those projects started, hold on, excuse me, my cat's now wanting to go out. I'll be right with you.
Yeah, it's okay. The cats. It's always the cats on every show. The cat.
Good. All right. So yeah, the other that set me, of course, on a journey, or the journey of producing Packing for Mars. Brought in a whole world of alternative information, including what then also emerged during that time period was a film we did with an Austrian gentleman called Klaus Dona, or Dona, depending on what country you're pronouncing it in. He is an out-of-place artifacts researcher, and I think maybe you know what that is. It's artifacts that are found around the world. And in his particular case, he was the only person to ever put together a real live museum level exhibit of 400 original pieces.
Wow.
Of such category, which you would describe as undescribable, or which would be history bunking or debunking pieces, which means that our world as we know it, our history as we know it, is pretty much a superficial version of what really happened. So so my expertise and my bio would be centering around producing films, presentations, writing about it, things have to do with consciousness, with unusual paranormal phenomenon, and touching upon the extraterrestrial world a little bit, although I'd never really considered myself a UFO expert. And when we did Packing for Mars, we jumped into that kind of, I emerged in the, I think our first splash touchdown was at the Contact in the Desert in outside in where was that, in California, and where we did presented the film in front of a couple thousand people. So ever since then, that's my world. I mean,
I was going to ask, the Packing for Mars film, prior to that, I mean, I'm interested to know what got you into the paranormal film field. Were you there before? Was it always around you and you had an interest? And second to that, two-part question, when you researched and created the film, what impact did that have on you?
Well, I pretty much accepted. I remember when I was 12 or something, or 11 years old, I came across a book about a Swiss contactee by the name of Billy Meyer, who had apparently been making who had only one functional arm, and he was making film recordings and audio recordings of UFO contacts with a being called what was he called? Semyazi, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And at that age, 11, I thought. I mean, I looked at this book had been made where they talked about this American team of scientists which had gone over and basically took the samples, made analysis of the recordings, of the metal, of the photos, of the films, and came to the conclusion that they couldn't debunk it.
Yeah.
Which is about the closest thing to coming to the point of saying it's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and a Japanese team also did some analysis and came to the same conclusion. So at that point in my life, I kind of figured, okay, UFOs are fascinating. They must be real. And I'm sure pretty soon we're going to find out, if they're real. Of course, then, I think many, many years passed. And of course, we never heard any official admission that they do exist.
Yeah.
And, but in the back of my mind, I kind of, when you have that kind of an experience very early in life, it sort of forms your brain in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I pursued actually more at that point. I got more into parapsychological things. Like I started reading books. I read the Carlos Castaneda series. Like I devoured that when I was like 13. Then I used to do workouts with an older guy. It was the boyfriend of my older sister. And he was into something called Jane Roberts' Seth material. And he kept feeding me these books. And I started eating up those books too. And that really explained the nature of reality like none I had ever really since
I
been
agree
explained.
with you on the Seth books. Absolutely, Jane Roberts.
You can pick up a Seth book today and you can read the nature of personal reality. And it's just as clear, mapped out picture of reality as anything I've ever had explained. So, then, I just kind of went in that direction, but then I forgot about all those things many years. And it wasn't really until a lot of years had passed and I was back I'd gone through music and performance and being in a band and touring and recording an album and trying to make it as a musician and getting into the whole record world. And then gradually, because of the digital era, I, emerging and brought into the possibility of everybody in their home, their home environment, being able to create quality recordings. And eventually that went from audio to video. And that's when I got into making digital films. Although when I was, I think 14, or 15 in high school, I took a film course and I actually made a film the old fashioned way on cellulite, Super 8. And that was an amazing experience too. So I think I knew at that point that film or media or multimedia, let's put it that way, was something that I wanted to spend the rest of my life expressing myself in whichever format that would be. And so I basically blend them all together. I often compose the music to films that I'm working on. And I love working with cameras and I love experimenting with, lenses and angles.
It's like, it's like how all the skills that we attain through a lifetime, they're transferable skills. And when we find our passion, we can transfer them skills in a different way. So that's how it works. I'm going to say, how did you link up with
Talking from Mars?
Yeah. How did that link come about? Because I'm really fascinated when I listen to my guests, the synchronicity or this happened or paranormal. So how did you link up to that? How did that happen?
Well, that came about when I started to, I moved to Austria, and for a brief period, I was working with a media house owned by the guy who puts out Red Bull cans. So he created a film studio or whatever, a production studio, and I started working there. And I wanted to, be more working on a production level. And I was at that point, I realized, okay, most people aren't really into these topics and the things that I'm interested in anyway. And I started watching films by, I came across some cool films by this guy called Jose Escamilla.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've heard of him too.
I have not. No, I haven't.
Unfortunately, Jose has left the physical plane and he's now operating on other dimensions. But before he left some remarkable documents behind, especially pertaining to the moon and what's really going on the moon.
Ooh.
And so I watched those, and it kind of tickled my fantasies. And then it wasn't until one night I was listening to and I wanted to make a film similar to, like, Jose was like the inspiration. I'm like, I've got all the tools, I've got all the skills I need. I just need a topic, and I didn't want to make just another documentary like every other documentary of just talking heads and some serious topic or some investigative topic. And I was listening to a podcast, and I heard this woman and this gentleman talking about being recruited for a Mars colony, and it brought back something that happened to me a few years earlier, where I'd been in Ontario, Canada, and I ran into this homeopathic farmer, and one night we were sitting around talking about whatever alternative things, and then he starts talking about this author and this book that came out of England in 1978 called Alternative 3. And that book, he says, was the truth. And he was flipping out about how it was like a total disclosure, cloaking as fiction, about the fact that there's a survival colony on Mars. And he gave me the book, and I took the book and read the book, and I thought, wow, fantastic book, really easy to read, amazing author, Leslie Watkins, an investigative journalist, Fleet Street, English Fleet Street, high quality level investigative journalist. So it had a certain air of believability to it, although everything we've been taught about Mars and science and the mainstream media and whatever is telling us, no, it's distant, at some point we might go there, and it's cold and it's all dead, etc. So I thought, okay, cool idea, but I never thought I'd make a film about it. And then all of a sudden I hear this podcast, and it was the great-great-granddaughter of President Dwight Eisenhower talking, or at least giving herself up as that.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, come on, is this really real, right? So then I thought, okay, that's got to be. And then the book, the memories of all I can. I've got to go after this story. I've got to reach out to this person. And for me, if she reaches out, if she responds, or if I can get to her, and it'll be a sign for me that I need to go out there and do this story. And so that's exactly how it happened. So I wrote Laura. And Laura wrote back and said, yeah, it's about time. Why hasn't someone come earlier? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been around until now, right? So anyway, that's how it started. It started on this, like, I figured the universe will open, the secrets to a fool who wants to know. Yeah. And I was that fool. So I grabbed my cameras, threw them in a suitcase, compacted everything down to as small as it could be, and I hit the road, hoping that the story would unfold as I went along, that one person would lead me to another clue, and that clue would lead me to another person. And that's really the journey of that film, which is like a real road movie, so that's, and also including, meeting up with the hitchhiker in that film, where you see a hitchhiker. That hitchhiker is a real person who is actually a real producer. Turns out that this person was the person who produced the Jose Escamilla films, which inspired me, who I met on the road. So
you couldn't make that shit up, could you?
You can't make that shit up, man. You can't make
that shit up. That's synchronicity. You met Craig. Is this where you met Craig?
Well, Craig came attached to Tanya Maidenford, because Craig and Tanya worked together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been working on The Stranger of the Pentagon script for over 10 years, together. So I think Tanya and Craig and what's his name, Reverend Frank D. Stranges, all have the same birthday. So it's like those three.
I mean, that is a double.
Right. So those three linked up, and Frank Stranges, said to Tanya and Craig, you guys have to put the story out. I'm entrusting you with it. Yeah. So that's kind of how I've got to know Craig, and Craig's been, a friend of mine ever since. Yeah. And now we're working on other things.
Yes, I know you're working on other things. We'll get to the other things later.
Yeah.
So when you started the film on the road, Did you find spiritually, as you were listening to Laura and others and what you were witnessing, did you find, how can I put this, that your own journey, your own conscious expansion, or any shifts that were going on with you? Did you find there was a change coming with you as you were actually experiencing making this film?
Yes, absolutely. It was the kind of thing where, first of all, I believe very much in kind of a human BS radar.
Yeah.
That all of us have, where we can, if we're in tune. I mean, not okay, maybe I should qualify that. Everyone has the potential for a BS radar, but most people are so polluted and clogged that they don't tune into it. But I was starting to have telepathic notions. I could hear things or thoughts, and I was realizing, okay, I'm able to be telepathic. I can hear things, I can hear thoughts, I can feel in it, and I can empathize things.
Yeah.
So for me, the BS filter was part of that. So I felt that, but the BS filter, it doesn't really work over a screen, like a YouTube screen.
No.
And a lot of the videos and UFO reports and all, at least at that time, which was 2010, were of very low quality, very gritty, and only, very poorly produced. And for one, I wanted to produce something, since I was working at the highest production level possible in terms of, where things were at the time with the owner of Red Bull. I said, why not take that production standard to a topic which is not normally associated with high production value, and make a cinematic, something which could easily screen on a huge screen in a cinema, and it passes the quality test of sounds awesome, takes you on a trip, looks great, has an artistic element to it. And mix that with this BS part where I figured if I go, the only way I'm going to be able to tell if these people are telling the truth is I'm sitting right in front of them.
Yeah.
I've turned the camera on, I've hooked them up to the microphone, and I've all told them, okay, I want you to tell me everything. And I just, and don't hold anything back. And I'm not going to contort your story or twist it or put it in bad light or manipulate it. I just want to know. And so that's kind of how these stories in the film emerged. They were I tried to, especially some of the people that actually already started to make public appearances. And it's one thing you notice with people, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you've watched presentations by people that in a certain field, they always have kind of a routine.
Yes.
they develop a language, a routine, a story.
Yes,
right?
They do. That's why I love my conversations organic, because get that out of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my idea was like, get them out of the routine. I don't want to know that story. I can tune into YouTube and watch that.
Yeah.
I want to hear some of the really hardcore. How did it feel to be in a teleportation elevator to Mars? Like, did you get dizzy? Did you feel like throwing up? I mean, did you how long did it feel? I mean, just like details that are very human, that anyone could relate to. That's going, what the hell? Are you serious? He teleported to Mars, right? So it isn't just like suddenly they were there. I wanted to know the details about how they got there.
I mean, it's a very simple. Sorry to interrupt. I'm saying it's like the question I asked you. How did it shift you? What happened to you? And I think in the past, them questions were never asked, but we are finding now from the likes of your work and other podcast hosts out there now, we really go down to the nitty gritty. We don't want to know the nuts and bolts anymore, but tell me about the experience. What was the impact on you? You're quite right. We can go on YouTube.
Well, the impact, for the most part, one of the things that happened was that I was listening to these stories, and they were describing events and technologies and science which did not or should not exist according to the foundation of knowledge that I had met up with in my life prior to this event. So I was finding myself going through this, what is called cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
I was having a hard time swallowing what they were telling me in terms of, is this what really, like, in my mind I'm going, this can't be true, they must be full of shit, right? And all these little voices like, oh, that can't be, he's full of shit. And then, no, he actually is feeling authentic and it feels right in my heart, I can have this no, it's absolute crap. And so it's like, and the whole, so that whole thing was going on with my mind, and I had to learn to ride the wave. You know, and just, so one thing that happened to me is I learned to just relax, and in a very Buddhist Zen sense, that I just didn't want to, I didn't judge. No. I witnessed. And
you become the observer, a bit like me, running a show. I'm the observer. Yes. I'm not judging, I'm just observing and going with the energy as it goes along. I think it's a skill.
Well, because it's very easy at that moment when you're having those like thoughts in your head, to fire back some kind of you know, negative thing.
Yes.
And as much as the temptation was there, and there's lots of those documents out there, we've all seen them, you know. But I didn't want to go there. I wanted to let them have their platform, and I told them, oh, look, if you're full of shit, I'm putting out a film. This is going to be memorialized, and you're going to have to live with yourself saying this when they find out that you are, right, for the rest of eternity.
Yes.
So don't give me bullshit, you know, just give me your truth. And so that was, and that led to that kind of a that's why the film is unique in a very as a very unique kind of document, because it really was one of the first films ever, at least on in this high quality cinematic attempt, to allow these people to tell their story unblemished. And not only that, but what happened is that many of the people in the film, we couldn't even tell people, you know, they who's else was in the film. It's like, big mistake. Never tell anybody, if you can, if you don't have to, who else is in your film, because everyone's got a stigma about everyone else in the field. One month they're lovers, they love each other, they're making appearances at UFO Congress together. The next month something happens and they now hate each other. They're evil, they're Satan, they're possessed, right? So we did our best to make sure that, you know, we kept it clean in that sense, and we didn't play one person off of another.
Absolutely.
The other thing that happened was, then there were moments where I really did know that I was sitting across, in one example, like sitting across from an extraterrestrial who was not from Earth, who basically came out for my camera publicly for the first time about being an extraterrestrial, who later then off camera showed me artifacts and told me stories that I just like major goosebumps. I mean, I knew that was real, and it really, it was not that I wasn't already open for, like I said, UFOs and alternative things. It was one of those things that kind of cemented my entry into that world, in terms of I'm comfortable with it now. I'm confident that if I'm in a public debate about someone, if I'm public and someone nails me with some edgy question or says I'm just an idiot or whatever, I can deal with that quite comfortably now. It doesn't throw me off at all. You know,
I mean,
I enjoy that now.
I'm going to jump in. I've got to ask, you know, there was two parts with the what. No, I've changed it now. You're sitting in front of, I mean, I've interviewed some diverse human beings and recently quite a few hybrids, and being an experiencer myself, I have no issues with this. But I'm saying for you, when you did that interview and then you interviewed one that is here, and what you call an ET here, whatever, your frequency must have shifted to connect to such a frequency, because this is how I explain it, you know, whether, you know, when I was on a craft or when I was off, or it's the frequency. You can never go back. It's a shift within. So, and on that, you have like this, you have a bullshit detector, but there's a truth detector, and the whole body energetically responds, like you spoke about with the goosebumps. You and you feel the pull, and that's all the evidence I ever need. So that in itself, Frank, must have shifted your timeline or shifted your awareness massively. It had to have done that.
Yeah, absolutely did. Because I essentially since then, I'm living on two timelines.
I'm
You know,
aware. I'm on one at the moment. I jumped. You've got to jump.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't. The other one, I just entertain it.
Yeah,
For
observe it.
yeah, I mean, I can that timeline is useful for things like
Yeah.
earning some money on
Go
the side
shopping.
and
Go shopping.
shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things. That's the only thing it's really good for. I don't really connect with that world
No.
in any
No.
other way.
No, I
I
don't.
don't have it. I stopped watching television.
Yeah.
I don't even look at the headlines. I mean, we don't have newspapers here. We do
No.
have them here, but not in our house.
No, not in my house.
And if I'm standing at one of the checkout counters in that timeline, I'm looking over at the headlines. It's like,
yeah.
I know it's for me. What happened to me is that what was fiction before became fact,
Absolutely.
and what is fact became fiction.
It's flipped.
So it's flipped,
Yes,
so I amuse myself by observing the inhabitants of the other timeline taking themselves very seriously, being led by the nose into a fictional reality constantly.
It's their choice, and I choose not that. I mean, the way I perceive it, and I say to others, they say, "What are you talking about?" I say, "Well, you know how to get into your own timeline, your own world, your own experience." I say, turn the goddamn TV off for 72 hours. Don't look at a newspaper. And why don't you get a camera out and film your own life? Your husband, your wife, your arguments with your spouse, you're shouting at your kids, you're gardening, you're walking, whatever you're doing. Just focus on your experience, that your timeline that you're in. After 72 hours, you turn on that box and watch that film. You're going to say, I'm not there. And that's what I said. That's the only way I can, give you a hint of how to do it. I'm going to say, the timeline you're on now. Did you find for a while? And I agree, it was one leg in, one leg out, one leg in, one leg out, and it's like I can't go back. I can't go. But then, did you find? Because I did. I don't know. My truth is, at some point along the line, I found all of a sudden, I'd shifted to this timeline, but I don't really recall how that happened. Does that resonate with you? Or do you remember when it happened? I can't recall at what point. Maybe because time, space, continuum, linear time doesn't really exist in all this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it happened the moment that I'd been living a certain life in Europe, let's say. When I left the States, for many years, I lived in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd absorbed the U.S. culture and the way of being, and I love America. I love the people. So many great friends over there. But when I left it, I decided, because I had kind of gone through, a lot of really edgy things, and this is another chapter, another lifetime in a way.
Yeah.
And it was so I had to walk away from it. And when I came over to Europe, I kind of said, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back into the Matrix.
Yeah. I've said that.
I want to taste the steak, even though I know it's full of shit, right? It's not real. That, so I tried to go back into the Matrix when I came to Europe, and I did that. I succeeded at that for about four years, something like that. 5 years maybe. And then I realized one day that no, it's not working. I can't do this. I'm done with this. So I decided then at that point, I'm going to return to who I really am.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop acting this other guy.
Yeah.
And at that point, I made a switch to this timeline already then. And then I knew that I just know that how it is when you visualize things, and when you make a decision like that, you just know, or you have to know, if you've never done it before, you just have to know that you're going to encounter beings, books, films, music, everything, culture,
shifts,
that reflects the new you. And there's an abundance. There's no limit to what is out there, No. And now I have in my life nothing but the coolest
Yeah.
researchers and
Yeah.
scientists and friends, and
Yeah.
all of them without exception are on the cutting edge of information, of consciousness, of,
Yeah.
and so I know that and when you are in that new timeline and you look back on the other timeline, it's just, you just feel sorry for the people that are stuck there. And for the most part, I think the most disturbing thing about it is that fear rules in that timeline.
And
It's
there's
about
none
fear.
on this timeline. There's none.
None whatsoever. And the
There's
heart
nothing to fear.
the heart opens in the other timeline. So a lot of the connection that I felt with the people we were interviewing for Packing for Mars was this heart connection, which breaks through cultural barriers, language barriers, planetary barriers, if you will. And everyone has that center in their being, which is in the human being, it's the heart, and maybe and extraterrestrials, it's some other organ. I don't know. They even have a heart,
I mean,
but
I don't know, but I resonate. I mean, since I shifted to mine, and even the energy of the guests that are coming on now is just so different. And I've really made great friends with other people around the world. Like, we just know each other, we resonate, we're supporting each other, and it's like a collective, just support each one in the field that we're doing. Oh, let's promote that, let's promote this. And I agree, it is so different. When I have to go, I do say I got to step into the matrix today to go shopping. When I do that, when I'm in there, I like you sense this, I don't know what it is, a density. It's just, you sense it. And you just, I personally, I know I don't belong here, and I'm looking forward to the day when I don't have to do just. So it would be either to a hospital appointment or shops. That would be it. And there's no other reason for me to step in. And then, so I so resonate with that. We have digressed, guys, slightly, but we needed to bring that up as well, because it's really important where this journey's going. So you did that. Now, obviously your awareness changed, your consciousness expanded, you're going on. What did you start to do after Packing for Mars? What comes next? Where did you go?
Well, at the same time of making, once I started on the journey for Packing for Mars, and I met up with Tanya Maidenford, and the two of us started making. I mean, she was a Hollywood producer working on Hollywood level films, so she was bringing another production level, or an eye for a production level to the projects, and she also has her own unique story. So the two of us together began to, like Scully and Mulder, kind of explore like this new universe, and that it just, since then, it's led us to, well, we made the film Solar Revolution. Actually, Solar Revolution came out before Packing for Mars, even though I was asked to make, even though I was making Packing for Mars while Dieter Breurs have asked, if we would make Solar Revolution. And I turned him down, saying, no, I'm making Packing for Mars. I don't have time. Well, it ended up that we made Solar Revolution first, and then came Packing for Mars. Oh, no, then first actually came Klaus Dona, because that was another interesting piece. And then Solar Revolution, then Packing for Mars. So at that point, we were deeply immersed in all these new, quantum level science things, that this new, and just sort of charting this new timeline, this new universe, whatever you want to call it, just kind of like making contacts. And we began working on a lot more consciousness raising material. So there followed, aside from the Red Bull can experience, which developed into producing, I think, 40 or something Ultimate Rush episodes, which were like, these extreme athletes doing these extreme projects that led to just developing skills to do these things in other areas. So we ended up working on something called Timeless, which was a German show produced through Gaia being an American network which had never done purely German content. So we were the first German 100% German content, produced 100% by us
Wow.
in Germany in a studio, exploring near-death experiences and parapsychology and paranormal experiences like had never been done before here, on a level that had never been done before, internationally. So, we broke a lot of new ground. We were basically pioneers, and we broke a lot of new territory with all the material that we were doing in terms of putting it on platforms which it had never been on before. Not to say that it hadn't been out there. There's many books and great people working in the, but we wanted to really, the idea is to push this stuff to another level, not just to continue, because it's a sort of there's a subtle message when you see something of very bad quality showing you some UFOs or whatever. You have this voice saying, if it's real, then why is it always shit quality, and why does it sound horrible, and the people can't talk? I know. So why doesn't anyone, if it's real, why hasn't there never ever really been a high production level thing? So that's been kind of like the goal, I'm
just going to jump in there. I mean, I found it, and I've heard others found it. It may not be true for everyone. But since jumping timelines, I think I'm sure we jumped. We said, no, get me out of here. That as co-creators, because we're in the different frequency, we are creating. So you would expose or bring to the media platform things that had never been seen before, because it's a new creation, because you can't create in this timeline with the old consciousness, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? You see what I'm saying? So in this timeline, even I'm finding, I go, how the shit did this happen? Where did this come from? It's like in the old timeline, this is the law of attraction on a linear timeline. Do this, do that, do this. But in this timeline, it's done. Does that make sense to you? Does that? It's hard for me to,
Sure. And still there's this desire, and at least on my part, at least that was the goal for Packing for Mars, to make a subject matter which was extremely unbelievable, palatable for people on the old timeline. Because it seems to me like the mission that I'm here on is part of that mission is to be a signal bearer for those who are open, who have been suppressed or blocked, or who are just in a place in their life where they don't dare to come out into admitting that they like this, that they are interested in this material, to give them a vehicle to bring back to their timeline, show people and say, see that, right? Like we still get letters from people after Solar Revolution came out saying, that they finally a film that they can show their doubting husband, who always thought I'm a crazy kook, and I showed him the film and he sat from beginning to end in silence because he couldn't dispute that we were actually entering bona fide scientific areas that you can't, if you don't know that material, you know, it's not like you're watching, some Corey Good episode where he's just talking about, something that's so way out there with no physical proof, no scientific proof. It's just a blue bubble came. I went there and I met with, 15 different races and blah, blah, blah. I mean, for me, that was like, okay, great. That's your world. Go for it. But we were trying to basically make the material still down to earth enough, earth being the old timeline, I guess, or the 3D earth. So that people could hold on to something and say, this is something which I can put my name on and say, hey, check this out. Watch this film. Watch this material. So that would distinguish our material from what you were describing earlier. It's like once you've crossed over, it's like, in some ways you don't need to convince the people on the new timeline anymore. You don't. So you can go into other areas with the material. But what we were still trying to do at that point, and maybe still are, I don't know, but at this point, up to this point, was to basically make it acceptable for people to cross over into and to touch their toe into the water and say, okay, I'm going to dip before I jump in. I'm going to just dip my toe in and see if I can work with this a little bit.
I mean, what you're doing is the same as what encouraged you from way back when you was a child. Someone wrote a book and you just got the book and you dipped your toe in the book and boom, look what happened. So, and it's the same with all the shows and podcasts and everything. On this timeline, this is what's happening. So obviously we need the connection between the two timelines. It's because for those on the other timeline, they're waking up a big time at the moment. In the billions, they're waking up, and they're starting to go to the alternative, and they're starting to put their toe in the water, say, well, hold on, I have a choice. I never realized, there's a light bulb. So it's really important. Where I want that now, that's a great segue to go into the next part. I'm just going to be an interrogator here. You do know that. So Frank, what projects are you working on now, or films or books, or what's going on in your world now? What are you working on now?
Well, once we released Packing for Mars over here in German, we had it actually dubbed into German and released it here, and it actually placed fourth in a really important film festival.
Wow.
Over here. We were contacted by a very, very famous German author, Jan van Helsing, who has his publishing company, and he produces and publishes a lot of books in this area of material. And we've become very good friends since then. And he has basically wants to collaborate on a book on the secret space program. Now, in the interim, what's happened is that once you start to go down into that area and you realize, okay, what another interesting topic between, okay, on the one hand, I'm on the new timeline, but on the other hand, I know the old timeline is full of fake news and fake history. And for me personally, that's one of my pet subjects. And so that has led to me researching history from the perspective of Germany. Why? Because apparently the German race, or the Germanic race, plays a very, very important role in the future of the world, of worlds, or of the future of the universe, or the multiverse, because they always have, and they've always been survivors, and they've always been struck down repeatedly all through history. You can, when you start to look into it, you realize just how much this Germanic seed, which is closely related, of course, to the Aryan race, and the Arya, and the greater, this idea of the if there's an extraterrestrial connection, which some people believe there is, and I'm exploring that, so it's like there's this something special about that particular people. And so I began to look into the most recent history of course, Germany, because Germany is like, the German people are considered, historically, at least relative to the official historical narrative, to be, some of the most evil people ever on the planet. And here I was now living in Germany as an American, or a Canadian, or North American, let's say, imbued with the North American culture from two different countries, Canada and United States, having been raised with the traditional school book perspective of, this evil man, Hitler, and how all these people, these dumb Germans, bought his BS, and they, were convinced that they could take over the planet and eradicate all Jews and blah, 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 right? And here I was sitting in Germany, and I'm starting to connect with people here that are like, don't fit the picture of, it was like cognitive dissonance again in another way. I was like, there were people approaching me saying, what happened here in Germany isn't the truth. The history books aren't talking about what really happened over here. How would you like to read this book? Or how would you like to meet this guy? He's 94 years old. He lived in the Second World War, and he was an eyewitness to blah, 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 right? And I'm like, yeah, man. Yes, please. I'm totally into it. And not only that, but like, we're living right in the, in the mecca of the National Socialists headquarters here, so it's like, I can see, the buildings, and there's cemeteries around here. The voices are there, the morphogenetic field is speaking, and they're saying, look here, don't believe all that. And so, yes, I began doing that. And I having learned the German language to a point where I can comfortably speak and read it and write it, I've began, a deeper exploration. And that led me onto, it's very, very dangerous territory, because actually I should be writing a book with Jan about the secret space program, but a lot of the material that's in the secret space program that's being published by, we don't mention their names, but well-known American authors, is historically founded on a fiction. And it's built up. They've built their entire pyramid on a base of fiction. And I know this to be true because I have the experience of having read it in German, found the material, been given the material, done this, and scoped it out spiritually and etherically and stuff. So I have to put it all on pause because I'm going, wait a minute, I can't write yet another book about the bad, the negative reptilians having allied with Maria Orsic, and they created all this reptilian energy, and they tried to invade, and they've taken over the United States, and they moved to Antarctica, and they blah blah blah, all this stuff. I'm sorry, for all of you out there that really believe these stories, I can tell you most of it is just totally built on fairy tales.
I mean, that sort of, and I did dig that out of you, and I told you I would. I mean, that's really fascinating. I mean, what a project to work on. I mean, as you're chatting away there, I'm thinking, now when he's done the book, he's going to turn it into a documentary. You'll do something with it because you're a creative artist. That's what you do. So that's really interesting. I won't hang in there any longer. You've given enough information away there. But what I want to ask is, are you working with Craig at the moment on anything?
Yeah, that was okay. So we can leave aside the book stuff leading to the potential documentary stuff to the historical perspective. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll leave that to one side because I'll get you back next year and we can go deeper and deeper in a specific topic. Right?
Yeah, and a lot of that material is stuff that we can't even really talk about on air without getting into serious trouble.
You made me blatantly aware.
Yeah. So let's just, that's a good segue, and Tanya, having been, a long time production partner with Craig, eventually, Craig put together with the help, with MUFON and Craig together in a collaboration, they released this best-selling, as far as I understand, best-selling book, E.T. Almanac, basically. And Craig had the great idea to put together a visual document to correlate to the book.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on with Craig. So Tanya and Craig basically invited me as well into it. And we've been, for the last months, since the beginning of this year, we've been regularly meeting with and interviewing contactees or ETs, to explain, to hash out the book in maybe more detail, to create a visual document that relates to that book. So that's something which we've built the foundation for it in terms of we've been gathering the material. So our next project will be to put that material into a nice, beautiful looking and sounding film and get that out there.
I mean, Craig did mention it on Open Mind Show a couple of weeks ago, and also there, Craig did put on this page. Craig did give me the links if you'd like to fund anyone out there, any millionaires out there, and I'm not joking because they could watch my little old show in the UK. But seriously, anyone that wants to donate and support this project, all the information's out there on the links. It's apart from the book, that we're not going to talk about now. We've gone in far enough. And this film that you're working on with Craig, what other dreams do you have or aspirations? Where do you want to go and create next? What's in your wish list?
Well, in our wish list is essentially to, Tanya and I have also been filming over the last few years a lot of material and interviews with people relative to a film that Tanya really has wanted to put out there. You know, we've done films about the sun, moon films, Mars, Venus, you know. So it would be nice to do a film that delves into the more mystical aspects of our good old Mother Earth. And so that's kind of, and we've also been fishing for that millionaire who's got money and says, hey, look, here, we'll cover your back so you don't have to worry about working on timeline 1 anymore and exposing yourself to the dangers and risks of all that. Just get to work on this mind-blowing, expanding material and put that material out there. So that's kind of, that's our wish, our bucket list is, or our wish list. Our bucket list is to, of course, connect with even more miraculous and amazing people out there and continue the production level that we aspire toward, and bring that material forward into more documentaries and more.
I'm with you. And it's about everyone working together, especially, you know, I mean, the millionaires, if you're on that time, on this timeline, you know, you can be anonymous to support this. However, it's about all of us working together. So it's the producers, the filmmakers, the TV hosts, the podcast hosts, of promoting and on this timeline. It's about a community supporting and making the shift that we need to make. However, I'm going to jump back to that, say you're getting interested in Mother Earth. You know, that really resonates with me, because recently, I don't know where this came from. It was a good few months ago. It was something about Mother Earth and Earth energies, and it was going on. And I'm actually traveling from the 23rd, if allowed, to off the mainland UK to a smaller island of the UK. And the reason I'm going, it's to do with experiences and blah, 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 of the energies that are there and what is there, and the hidden history, which was revealed a few weeks ago when I met the author of a trilogy about this island, how the history had been hidden. It was a load of BS. And the Jamaican people were there first, actually. I've got to say that. They hit the island first. That's going for, I think it was for something AD. Anyway, I can't recall. So I'm going on my own. I'm going away for the holiday, what you call the holiday season. I'm not going away for Christmas. It's a holiday, but I'm not actually going to sit there and stuff my face and pull crackers. I'm exploring the forests, the megalithic stones. There's a long stones there, and I'm going exactly for that reason. And I kept saying, I'd only ever made one documentary, and that was in my career. I made a documentary on domestic violence and child abuse to bring awareness to my colleagues. So, you know, never done it before. It just happened as it does. And I keep thinking, I got to film this. I'm going to have to film, even with my phone, I'm going to have to film it and see if I can pull something together, and to bring back the experiences of this, because we get so many nature programs on what they want us in the old timeline to perceive to be true or not, but we don't actually get anything on Mother Earth itself, the energies, who's there, the elementals, and all the other rest, all the paranormal is there. Now, when I do take people into forest, believe it or not, I'm not the bad wolf, and it's like an initiation to connect, and you would not believe what people experience once they open up to the earth energy and realize we are so connected. It's unbelievable. So for you doing that with Tanya, I mean, that's just fantastic. And with your, you know, skills that you have, it's gonna be amazing. Surely, you're gonna produce something really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I think I try to get as much of me out of the way as possible, and like to think that when I'm editing and when I'm producing something, that it flows, whatever flows comes through, and that's usually the best. That's usually when you get the best result. And Tanya's really good at identifying when you're full of shit.
It's good when you get a bullshit detector on the other side, just to say, you know, that's just a load of crap. Would you shut up?
Yeah, but we
It,
have some incredible material that we filmed already
oh,
and
wonderful.
in Bhutan and Cambodia and other places
Oh
we've
my God.
been and
You
and
know,
and, and
when you're ready to release this, you can just come back on the show and promote it and all the rest and all the above. And this book.
yeah, I mean we probably have 3 or 4 documentaries in our brains right now that would
I can imagine.
revolutionize
Yeah,
the planet, and
yeah.
just if they
Well,
were out
it's
there, if they were
but
only out there. And that's the
it's
biggest thing.
needed.
How do you get them out there? I often wonder, like we've
Yeah.
had pretty much, we've had a nice success with our films, Packing for Mars being,
Yeah.
Maybe even more successful in Germany, but still it's only such a tiny amount of people. When when blockbuster Hollywood films come out, they get to billions of people, I'd love to be, I just wish we got 100 more times the response than we've had, and we'd probably only be by a couple million or something, so but that would be enough.
I mean, an oak tree, it starts with a little acorn, doesn't it? A little bud, and it grows. I mean, remember, we've shifted into a new timeline, and it's new. That means we're starting over. We can't create with this old consciousness. So they can go and get their billions and millions of viewers. You're creating, as a co-creator, something that is to change the systems that will be deconstructed. Even on that time, they will fall. What is hidden will be revealed. They have to fall away for the new to come in. So they're not permanent, so to speak. But so you're gonna do it. I mean, you're just definitely gonna do it. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have shifted into the timeline to create what, I don't know, Dolores Cannon, the New Earth. You can call it whatever you want. All I know is I'm watching a movie, and it's a B movie now, but I look back and think, how the hell did I fall for that? It's like, and once that happens, as I said, the creation as co-creators speeds up. That it doesn't even speed up, it just happens. You think it, the thought is a power, you create, it's gone. And you'll have the audience that's needed to be by the intention that you're putting into it. It's that intention. And I think that's where the basic law of karma comes in. The observation, you attract it back. It will be absolutely successful. It's going to be successful. It's going to be. Well, we're coming up to the hour. It's been really interesting. And it's been a real organic, just a conversation. And thank you for making your journey more personal for us. And I think that's what I noticed about when you're saying about when you interviewed people packing for Mars and you were making it different. What you did, you personalized it so the audience could actually resonate with it. We can't resonate with grainy pictures of nuts and bolts UFO. I'm a contactee. I've been gone many times. And when I see videos, and even the Pentagon's videos, I look at them and I go, ugh, it doesn't resonate with me at all. So what you've done in that film is you've personalized it, that other experiences that are just not quite ready or waiting for the door to open, pick that up, just like you did when you picked up that book, and off they go. And I'm sure with what you're going to do with Mother Earth, you're going to do exactly the same. Now's your point. You can sell your wares shamelessly. Where can people get hold of you? What can they do? Blah, 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 blah.
Well, if anyone's interested in watching any of those films we talked about, the best place to go to find them would be the screenaddiction.com website, which would be screenaddiction, all one word, .com. And on that, if you reach that page and scroll down a little bit, you will find links to get to any and all of our films that we've done, that you can download, or you can see them as video on demand. Solar, Packing, Klaus Dona, and so that would be the place to start. And other than that, I mean, there's the websites for the films themselves, like packingformarsmovie.com, Klaus Dona Chronicles.com, and what else is there? solarrevolutionmovie.com. And those will find you'll find websites that will give you more information, the synopsis. You'll find other links, like, for example, Leslie Watkins. It was cool when we released Packing for Mars. trailer. We got about 2 weeks after we released the trailer saying we're going to release the film, we were approached by Graham Watkins, his son. And it turns out that Graham was just in the middle of recompiling and reissuing the classic book Alternative 3 after 40 years.
Wow, synchronicity.
And and he was like, my dad still has, the copyrights and all that stuff. And he's like first touching his way to us carefully. And I said, yeah, cool. Here, you guys should watch the film. Awesome. I never knew your dad was still alive. It would have been great to interview him, I've now since, of course, you can and by the way, you can watch my interview with Leslie Watkins on packingformarsmovie.com. But we actually had a hand in helping Leslie re-release Alternative 3 after 40 years and getting, I'm like this with him now. We've regularly communicate. He's now 94 or 92 or something. So he's still going strong. And if he's listening, Leslie, I love you, man. Great that we ever connected. And he's wonderful. He's such a wonderful person. And he helped me to debunk a lot of the myths that I had about the book, because I thought that he was an agent, working for the dark side and blah, blah, blah. It turns out that he was basically opening himself up. And he opened himself up and he tread into areas that he wasn't supposed to tread into. And that led to some very, very interesting, fateful experiences on his part, including, losing all of the material for the second version of the book that he was about to, when he moved to New Zealand. And his phone being tapped and politicians calling him and saying, how did you ever know this was going on? So it was a lot of confirmation that we were on the right path. And it was one of those amazing things that when you're doing something that is right for you, you get, and others come to you and they give you more confirmation. Then it's just such a wonderful feeling. That,
Craig's on. Craig's come on, Frank.
But Craig's come on.
Yeah, he's in. I just put him in you just saw him in the chat. Two of my favorite people. Hold on, right there. Love you, Craig. Mwah, mwah. He's come on to watch. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, again,
hey, Craig.
That's amazing. It's like how through your journey and I've spoken a lot lately in the groups that I'm in, and we're all recognizing the synchronistic events. At one point, maybe on the old timeline, we only ever saw it with hindsight, which is a bitch. Oh, that's why that. But it's sort of on this timeline, have you found, the synchronistic events, you're fully aware when you're in it.
Yes. And you meet the person and it's like you recognize everybody.
Absolutely.
Everyone that walks up to you, it's like, oh, there you are, brother. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. They're like, finally, you gave me that piece of the puzzle I was looking for.
Yeah. And that's how it goes. Yeah. I mean, that's the benefit of it. Like in the old timeline is, we said synchronicity, until it becomes, the word synchronicity doesn't even need to be said. It just happens. That's how fast it's shifting now. Not in a linear aspect, but I've so noticed it, and it's
and
really
you can
nice.
Also, the other thing, and sorry to interrupt, but the other thing you notice is that when somebody brings out something which is BS, at the same time, contra. Yeah. Like one of the things that's happening with Valiant Thor that Tanya and I have noticed, it's like there's now all this other stuff coming out, and they're depicting them as like some dark, angel, dark force, whatever, and they're connecting them with that same dark fake story of the Germanic people and stuff. And so, okay, now it's like, okay, this is absolute, like when you see the BS, it's clearly recognizable. And it's very, you don't get swept off path anymore.
Yeah. You don't resist and you don't defend it on this timeline. Right. It's irrelevant. Right. And I'm glad you raised that, because Craig being online. And as I said, next year we're going to do the 4 books. We're going to do a show. We're going to go into the 4 books and get that out there, go into detail about the books. But Craig mentioned it on his show about what had happened. But this.
Oh, did he talk about the Thor stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, he spoke about about how they're misinterpreted. I think he did, unless I dreamed it. Being psychic, I could have dreamed it as well. But the fact is, on this timeline, it's like, do what you need to do, just go away. It just doesn't. But before we would have, come back at you, and all you're doing, you're staying in a loop. you're attracting more and more because you're resisting. Just let it go. And then obviously you've done that because the amount of creativity you've produced and the quality of what you've produced as well has made such a difference to it's obvious if you don't see it. Not many of us see what we do, but you must have an awareness of the creativity within you.
There's that point. There's always that point when you're looking back on something you've just finished, and you know that like you're surprised as much as anybody. You're going like, wow, this is like,
I did that.
Nailed it. You know,
I did that, and that's been a lot of I did that. Wow. And you know, you think, where the hell? And you've got to look at all the programming we had in the other timeline. Down, don't step outside, don't but and then when you get that, I did that, then after that, it's not egotistic, it's for me, it's valuing the self.
Yes, you need that, because there's very little, you know, there's very, very little material reward for people such as ourselves doing these avant-garde cultural and metaphysical and other spiritual topics. You often have to put your own time, resources, everything you have into them. So all you really get as monetary reward is you get those amazing letters, those amazing feedback. So that and if you really, you know, the self-glorification aspect is not for the glory of ego, but it's for the glory of God, if you want to say it, you know, like just for the glory of the universe, right? So you've just pinned and nailed down something, an expression that is the collective result of what the universe has put together for you, and you've just channeled it. So it's something to celebrate, not on an ego level at all. It's something to celebrate on a universal level. And you know, it's also and when you're doing films and you are touching areas that are controversial, you can't just go to the government, you know, that's got a film fund, and you just go, hey, give me some money for my film. They go, well, what's it about? Can we read the script? Oh, it's about Mars and a colony, right? Okay, thank you very much. And you know, it's like you can't just you can't go out on some of the platforms like fund me platforms, because you don't want to give away your story either. You want to keep it, because sometimes putting something out there that's very controversial requires extreme secrecy. We had 5 years of secrecy when we produced Packing for Mars. Tanya and I didn't talk about it to anybody, nobody, not even family. We just did it, you know. And then when we dropped it, it was a bomb because nobody saw it coming. And and if we would have been talking and blabbing and GoFundMeing all the way, we'd have had the cat out of the bag, and we'd have had lots of darts and energy coming at us to try and you get enough of them anyway.
And plagiarized and
plagiarized, etc.
Everything would have happened. No, I mean, excuse me. There is an element that you need a bit of secrecy when you do certain projects, and we will do it. And you know, it's just like you know, I was at university, plagiarism. You keep your stuff hidden away until the time comes, because there's always someone waiting there to plagiarize you. Take what you got, or try it because they're you know, because of who they are, negative Nellies. They try and destroy what you've got because they haven't thought it up, or they haven't created it. So let's go and destroy them.
Absolutely.
And that's the way. So there is I have an understanding. We still need, even in this timeline, with the word secrecy, and maybe it's not the word. Maybe I find a new word, like, you know, just keep it undercover for a while.
It's omission. It's by a choice of omission. It's like we might be working on the E.T. Almanac documentary, but we're not going to be. People can get the book and they can kind of imagine what it might be, but it's the genius of us working together that is going to create a document. Nobody will have a clue what it's going to look like, sound like, what it's going to be like ultimately. And that's
it's going to be fantastic. I know it's going to be fantastic, because Craig told me about the super duper special effects, and it's £15,000 for an hour or something. So he gave me all the details, you know. But I know it's going to be amazing, and I've told Craig, and you've got to agree. You don't have a choice. When it's out, you can both come on together, and you can sell your wares. Tanya. Yeah, I'll bring Tanya. 3 of us. I haven't heard back from Tanya. You need to have a chat with her. I've heard nothing back.
She's a hard girl to pin down. She's juggling a lot of balls at the same time.
Okay, well then go and get a net and catch her, all right, and drag her back. But do that. So I want to thank you so much for the amazing and deep conversation with you, and for everything you do. It's been an honor, and you've got to come back next year. Obviously the film, the book, whenever, and anything else that comes up. And thank you to the audience for watching. I do apologize if this week it doesn't hit YouTube. It's the first one, and YouTube is saying it takes us up to 48 hours to connect, but it's on 3 pages, and other groups have shared it out across the world into their groups, or you'll be watching it later on when you get home from work. Please like and subscribe. I say all the time, it's not about me, even though it is about me. No, it's not about me. It's about getting the message that the guests are bringing to go as far and wide as it possibly can. And I will say, if anything in the show resonates with you, then you know where to go. Go research, do your own research. Don't believe me or Frank, but if it resonates, do your own research and follow that. If none of it resonates, just put it to one side and move on. Until the next time, everybody, and the next conversation, thank you for watching Open Minds. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor. And Merry Christmas, and have a Happy New Year and all that good stuff.
Oh, and all that good
Be
stuff.
safe.